John Noe unveils Greater Than We Believe with your host, Stephen King.
Well, hi, it's good to see you back again. My name is Stephen King, and this is my friend John Noe. We are doing our continuing our series called Greater Than We Believe. Been doing it for over 4 years. Got 204.
With a break in between.
Yeah, a little break, and I think you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, this week we're continuing the discussion based on this book. Yes, John wrote this and printed it in 2011 called Hell Yes, Hell No, and we've been on the subject of hell, and we're on video number 206 today, and we're not finished with the book, but we've got some concluding thoughts on what we've talked about so far. So we want to John was going to gather together what we've spoken of, and then we'll continue speaking about it after that. So John, what are your concluding thoughts on what we've talked about so far?
Well, I have my hell shirt on.
Hey, your hell shirt, got it flaming red.
Saved it for this one.
Yeah.
So, come now. Let us reason together.
Yes.
Isaiah 1, 18a. Stephen, based upon what we've covered so far, and I think it's 13 videos, if my count was right, on Hell Yes, Hell No. How solid or how substantial do you now think the biblical and historical support is for the traditional church's views and beliefs on hell today?
I don't think they're very well supported scripturally.
Is Gehenna Hell?
No.
Is Sheol Hell?
No.
Is Hades Hell?
No.
Is Tartarus hell? No. Is the lake of fire hell?
No.
What is the lake of fire?
We found out that that's actually God himself.
For our God is.
Yes, a
consuming
fire, right.
Are human bodies and souls being tormented in hell presently?
No, never will be.
What do you think? If you haven't seen our previous videos, you better go back and look at them. Mm-hmm. If not now, then someday will they be? And where in the hell are they now? Yeah. It's amazing to me, Stephen, how lacking and how void this biblical support is for the huge traditional belief and foundational doctrine of Christianity, so to speak, called hell. So where am I wrong on this? Where? I ask you. I mean, I have no idea, no desire to be in error, biblical error or otherwise. And I keep asking myself, why would Jesus confuse his original audience and us today by introducing another otherworldly place of the dead when he had already revealed Sheol and Hades as the otherworldly holding places of the dead back then? Even more confusing. Why would he do so by using a familiar name and a proper noun of this place, Gehenna, located on the southwest corner of Jerusalem back in Jesus' day? And here's our current pictures. It's still there. It's still called Gehenna. Why in the world would he use Gehenna as a symbol or whatever for hell? Okay, a critical objection. Erasing Hell, Francis Chan and Preston Sprinkle. According to them, the first century Jews believed in hell. Jesus called it Gehenna. You would think the first century Jews would believe more in Gehenna than in hell, because Gehenna was right there in front of them.
Right.
And they could smell it. They could smell it every day. As a place of punishment that awaits the wicked. They insist that this belief, quote, was nearly unanimously held. This is undeniable, they say. This is the first century Jewish view of hell. And this Jewish world is the one Jesus grew up in, they say. Therefore, quote, if we want to understand Jesus in light of his own first century context, then we need to understand that this context believed about hell, which actually was Gehenna. Mm-hmm. And this will keep us from reading back into the New Testament our own ideas about what Jesus was saying about hell, which was actually Gehenna. Is that how far astray we have really gone?
Pushing the limits.
But John also clarifies that, quote, the typical afterlife scenario among the Jews in Jesus' day was that after the wicked die, they go to a place called Hades, sometimes called Sheol. Well, that's right. And this is not the same as hell. Well, duh. Neither is Gehenna.
Right.
Hades is a place where the wicked wait until Judgment Day, which they believe hadn't happened yet. And after they are judged, the wicked are thrown into hell as punishment for their sins. Is this indicative of how far astray we moderns have gone from biblical truth? In other words, John's traditional Christian view conflicts with what we have been presenting in Hell Yes, Hell No, our last 13 videos. And he is claiming that Jesus' Gehenna was indeed our traditional and modern day concept and reality of what we call hell. And he maintains that no Jew would have scratched his head wondering what Jesus meant and was getting at. And the everlasting fire of Gehenna is the place of punishment for all who don't believe and follow Jesus in this life. Oh, really? He says this is their final state, and Jesus agreed, and quote, Jesus agreed with his Jewish contemporaries about this reality of hell, end quote. Jesus never used the word hell. He used Gehenna. Big difference. My response, at best, John's allegations associating Gehenna with hell is a weak connection at best, and a major stretch for these 10 concluding reasons. Are we ready? Mm-hmm. In Hastings' Dictionary of the Bible, would you read for us on page... What is it? What do I got marked there? 285. Mm-hmm. His notes about Gehenna, which they mistranslate as Gehell.
Okay.
But Jesus said Gehenna 11 times.
Okay, so under the heading of Gehenna, it says, no systematic eschatological statement has, however, been preserved for us from Jewish times, much less one which may be said to represent a general consensus of opinion. The New Testament writers employ the word in its general force as a synonym for the idea of endless punishment for sinners as over against heaven.
That's something. So John and Sprinkle cite only one reference from the Apocrypha, 15 intertestament books written between 200 BC and AD 100 that directly associate Gehenna with a final afterlife place of torment. And I found no other direct association in the Apocrypha, although there are several references in the Apocrypha to fire, flames, torment, and judgment. But only that one is all they have out of that. The Old Testament pseudepigrapha, which is the Apocrypha and other sacred writings written about same time period from 200 BC supposedly to AD 200, contains 10 vague and unsubstantiated references to a abyss or an unnamed valley. And the only possible exception in which the word Gehenna is used in the English translation is in something called the Ascension of Isaiah 4:14, which I have no idea what that is, but something written back then. And this scarcity of usage and association hardly substantiates John and Sprinkle's claims that we highlighted here. 3, no doubt, some influence and confusion could have crept into Jewish thinking from Greek and Egyptian and other pagan sources. In this regard, the Anchor Bible Dictionary, which I don't have a copy here because it's in the seminary library at Christian Theological Seminary on the campus of Butler University here in Indianapolis, comments about Hades and hell, quote, while Greek ideas about the afterlife probably did not influence the origins of Jewish expectations or of retribution after death, later Jewish writers sometimes incorporated particular terms and concepts from Greek and Roman Hades into their own picture of the afterlife. And that further, Anchor Bible Dictionary also says this. It says, further suggests that Gehenna may have naturally lent itself to the underworld realm of the god Molech. Why?
God of fire.
Well, go back and watch some of our previous videos.
Yes.
Because Moloch was worshipped there.
Yes.
In Gehenna. And also, they offered sacrifice of babies, live babies, and other things into the fire that was burnt in his statue that was built or whatever it was, and burned in there. Other reasons given for the association are the fact that the valley of Heman was noted for the fires of Moloch cult, which I just mentioned, and later contained the continuing burning fires of a refuge camp, the garbage dump. Although Gehenna does not have these associations currently, as we have seen, it's not a garbage dump anymore, but it's still called Gehenna.
Yeah.
Does not have any of these, currently. In the Old Testament, the primary source of an association of particular prophecies of Jeremiah regarding dead bodies of the wicked into Gehenna were cast there. But at least in the first century after Christ, or what they call first century CE, there emerged a metaphorical understanding. Notice that word, metaphorical. That's a nice way of saying, well, we thought it up.
Yeah.
Understanding of Gehenna as a place of judgment by fire for all the wicked everywhere around the world, from around the world. And this understanding divorced Gehenna from its geographical location and retained its fiery nature, and Gehenna then became hell itself. And we've had a lot to say in our previous videos about all this.
Right.
Or had it. As we have seen, Jeremiah's prophecies pointed toward a this-world national judgment event within the generation of Jesus' contemporaries, and most likely this occurred in circa AD 70, actually 66 through AD 75. In Scripture, Gehenna is not cast into the lake of fire. Question 6, in Josephus' book, the works of Josephus, here, in his treatise on the most common Jewish position on Hades, Tartarus, and heaven, located inside here, Gehenna is never mentioned once. No such connection is made. In fact, Josephus never mentioned Gehenna in any of his extensive writings. 7th, the Septuagint does not translate Sheol as Gehenna, but as Hades. 8, in concluding statements here, Jesus has time restricted the fulfillment of his Gehenna warnings to this generation. See again, Matthew 23:15, 33, and 36, for example. 9, Jesus wasn't using Gehenna in any differently than Jeremiah was using it in his 3 Jeremiah prophecies as a national this world judgment event. See again, video 199, I believe it is. Lastly, Jesus has prophesied, when you see Jerusalem, and he was prophesying this to real air-breathing, blood-breathing people back then. When you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, you will know that its desolation is near, actually at hand.
At hand.
For this is the time of punishment and fulfillment of all that has been written. Luke 21:20 through 21. All that has been written would include Jeremiah's 3 Gehenna prophecies, would it not? Absolutely. All right. It's time for some concluding thoughts. Let me go to Brian D. McLaren and the last word and the word after that. He offers a valid speculation for why many Christians are or will be fearful about even questioning, let alone testing, this belief that we've been talking about hell. He writes, if so many Christians have been so wrong about hell, how can we be right about anything? Isn't that the kind of, if I'm wrong about this, maybe I'm wrong about everything else. Perhaps, as he sarcastically suggests, we should take a dismissive attitude and decree that, quote, it's not really that central, end quote. Or maybe we could console ourselves with this bit of patronizing. Quote, a person can't just go on rethinking things all the time, end quote. Or perchance we should face up to the possibility that we might be using our understanding of hell, quote, to minimize the importance of justice on the earth. Ooh. And here's my thoughts. And by extension, to excuse ourselves from our biblically mandated role of seeking justice on the earth and to contributing to making this happen, instead of being the frozen chosen or the sleeping giant.
Yeah.
Or, of course, it is easier to soothe our complacency by believing that injustice in this world will be paid for in the next world, and leaving it at that. For me, however, Stephen, the following from the popular scholar N.T. Wright, here it is. I don't have his book. I think I got it out of the library, CTS's library, but here's the copy of what the front page looks of his book, Following Jesus, Biblical Reflections on Discipleship. Probably is more biblically in tune than are many generations of Bible readers, as he concludes this, quote, most of the passages in the New Testament which have been thought by the church to refer to people going into eternal punishment after they die don't, in fact, refer to any such thing. N.T. Wright said that, not John Noe. I just read it. And he goes on, he says, the great majority of them have to do with the way God acts within, and the word within is italicized to emphasize how important it is, have to do with how God acts within the world and history. Most of them look back to language and ideas in the Old Testament, which work in quite different way from that which is normally imagined. Isn't that something? So, by now, brothers and sisters, your head, perhaps your heart, may be swimming in a sea of further questions. Are the hell passages really hell passages? Or do all this hell stuff represent a biblical bankruptcy? Are we clinging to unscriptural belief? Have false theories of hell done unfathomable damage and untold millions and on untold millions and billions of people? Have we been obeying God purely on the fear of a false concept? Are those who have turned their backs on God because they cannot believe a loving God would send people to eternal punishment ultimately going to end up there anyway? These are good questions, and we'll be addressing them further. But maybe, perchance, and perhaps, and conceivably, there is one thing that we can now agree upon. Can we? The Italians are truly right when they stated,
Translator, traitor.
Traduttore, traditore. Translators are traitors. All translators are traitors. At least in regard to the 4 original biblical language words variously mistranslated as hell. Gehenna, Sheol, Hades, and Tartarus.
Yes.
Do you also remember our revealing statistic and graphic in our video 196? It showed the matches. The word hell going from a high, that means translations of an original language word to the word hell, matches, going from a high of 54 down to 0. In closing, this last video, and that's why I have my red shirt on, celebrate that. In closing this last video on hell, and the subject, and our subject of does hell really exist? Can we now agree that hell is not just a poor and blatant mistranslation of these 4 original language words of the Gehenna, Sheol, Hades, and Tartarus, and is not just merely misleading, but it is outright substitution of a totally unrelated word, and a perversion and a corruption of the text by translators. Can we agree on that? And all of which has created centuries of confusion and anxiety. Would you now agree or disagree? Hell yes, or hell no. Now you know where I got that title for the book. In my opinion, none of these 4 words should be translated as hell, any more than it would be proper to translate these other proper nouns as hell. Like what? Well, how about Calvary? Or Gethsemane, or Bethlehem, or Jerusalem, or New York City? Well, I don't know about that. Or the Grand Canyon. Why not translate the Grand Canyon as hell? I'm going to go throw you in the... Oh, never. But this is exactly what translators have done, is it not? Proper nouns for real earthly places should be left untranslated. Gehenna is not hell. Gehenna is Gehenna.
Right.
It was true back then. It's true today.
Yes.
Would you now agree or disagree? Again, hell yes or hell no. Likewise, the etymology and original meaning of the word hell meant to cover, conceal, and protect for a temporary period of time. It has little or nothing in common with our modern day popular concept of eternal conscious punishment, fire and brimstone and torment. So what are your thoughts now? At least would you now agree that our traditional notions of hell are far from decisive, are not clearly taught in the Bible, and our efforts to maintain this view are now more difficult by the insights and what we have unveiled so far? Hell yes? Hell no. If hell no is your answer, then where am I wrong on this? I mean, I want your corrections. I want your insights. Biblically, not just I believe stuff. And please be assured, I am open to correction, provided it's civil and biblical. Is that
properly translated?
Caution. Traditionalists fear that if there is no hell, then there is no need for the cross. If there is no hell, there is no need for Jesus. Whitmer, in his book, and if you will read it for me, that quotation I marked there, Whitmer phrases this fear this way.
Said, I appreciate that the looming threat of hell can make us uncomfortable. But if we eliminate this from the scriptures, we deflate the true and even more astonishing biblical story. A world without the real possibility of hell, of eternal death, would increasingly resemble the contrived world of the film The Truman Show, comically and tragically unrealistic.
So as we will further see, Stephen, and continue to see, this fear is premature and mistaken. It would be erroneous for you or anyone to jump to this conclusion at this point. There is plenty from which to be saved. Mm-hmm. And this change of view does not dispose the need for Jesus or his work on the cross or anywhere. Nor does it demean the importance of Christian morality in this life or suggest moral values are to be cast aside. Moreover, many scriptures speak of loss, suffering, and punishment in the afterlife, and not just for unbelievers, but also for believers.
Yes.
Now, it's on to the next part of our book and our next playlist title here, and a even greater and more contested issue than hell. Mm-hmm. And that is what we're going to call the all controversy.
Yes.
All spelled A-L-L, mm-hmm. Controversy, i.e. the final and eternal destiny of those who have not believed in Jesus or have never heard mm-hmm. about Jesus or have heard but rejected Jesus. Biblically, now, based on the fact that there is no such place biblically mm-hmm. as hell, what now becomes of them?
Yes.
Yes, we will call this next new playlist series the All Controversy.
Thank you, John. I'm eager to continue this discussion. I was very, very happy when I first read John's book to come to a better understanding of the whole idea of hell is not scriptural, because it didn't seem like it didn't fit with the personality of the God of love. Everything about the hell doctrine it tasted bad. But that's not where it stops, because he brought up at the very end there. So people go to heaven, and if they don't know Jesus, they don't get to go to heaven. Where do they go? That's a great question. If it's not hell, if you're not going to be burning forever, if it's not that type of a deal, what does happen to those people? And that's what we're going to go on to now. That's part of what the book is covering here. And the all controversy is something that I'm very much looking forward to getting into with John. Once again, you have to have an open mind. And don't let people tell you what they think we mean we're saying.
By the way, I don't know of a church where you could even address this topic.
Very difficult. People are afraid. They don't want to have their beliefs shattered or shaken.
And people who are afraid are not effective.
No.
And is that not being manifested so much
Absolutely.
Today?
Yes. So folks, just please come back and see us. Please keep an open mind. I've never tried to hawk or get people to buy John's books. If you want to buy them, you're great. If not, that's fine too, because you're going to get most of what they say through our series here, but there's nothing like reading it. But this was the first one I read, and this is the one that made such a big difference in my life. And if a lot of what he said, it may kind of be going over your head a little bit here, to have it in written form and to be able to read and read.
How many times have you read it?
3 times. And I get something new, I glean something new every time. It's not that I necessarily learn new things, but I catch a better understanding of something that I thought, oh, well, that makes more sense now. So,
you know what happens to me?
What's that?
I forget stuff.
Yeah, I do too. I'm at that age too. So God bless you all. God bless you in your studies and your relationship and your prayer life with God and your desire and thirst for truth of His Word. And if you're still wanting to thirst after God, just continue to tune in. We're always going to be doing what we can to try to help distinguish the difference between the traditions of men and teachings of men versus sola scriptura. So God bless you all. We'll see you next week. Good night. All right.